Hello, and welcome to the Thursday Night Kissaten podcast. I'm the host, Cordelia. Today, in this episode, we're going to talk about a novel called Lanch no Asko chan, Asko's Lunch, and a little bit its TV adaptation. The novel, Asko's Lunch, was first published in 2013 and written by Atsuko Yuzuki. 2 years later, it was adapted into a TV series and aired on NHK. There are 3 books in the series in total, and the TV show is only an adaptation of the first 2 volumes, which is Atsuko's Lunch and 3 O'Clock Atsuko. The last book of the series is titled Management's Atsuko. So in this story, Michiko, our main character, works as a contract worker at a company in Tokyo. In the beginning of the story, she has no personality and is always treated unfairly and pushed around by others. Her boyfriend breaks up with her because she is boring and never says no to anything. So after the horrible heartbreaks, one day, Michiko loses her appetite over her lunch, which was put together by leftovers. Her boss, Atsuko, walks by and suggests a week-long lunch exchanges between the two of them. So, which is where the story starts. So first, let's talk about the writer, and also a bit about the story of the 3 books of Atsuko's Lunch. So after graduating from university, writer Atsuko Yuzuki, who is actually majored in the French literature and dreamed of becoming a scriptwriter. She first worked as a part-time at a TV show production company, then at a candy making company, and then as a contract tutor at a tutoring company. So while working at the candy making company, Yuzuki read the book Sugar Time by Yuko Ogawa, and she was very much comforted by the sweets and food in the books. Meanwhile, she kept on writing. She never stopped writing. In an interview Yuzuki did with the White Book magazine in 2011, she talked about her path to becoming a writer. When she worked at a TV show production company, she had experience producing a plot for Suspicion drama, where she learned that everyone could be trained to be a professional writer. So she was very pleased by that, and she studied very hard. However, but she was also tired of the rules and the limitation of script writing for TV channels. So soon later, Yuzuki decided to write novels, even though it was very difficult for her at first. So in 2008, Yuzuki won the O Yumimono Prize for the New Writers Award for a short story. At the same year, she debuted as a writer. Yuzuki loves to write and translate, as well as food. She was even an instructor at a pastry company at one point, right? No wonder so many of her books are about food or have connections with food. She talks about her time working at the candy making company. She said they worked so hard, and the food in the Sugar Time, that book, was the only comfort that she got at that time. So I think it is true that the art, especially literature, comes from life but also above the real life. So Yuzuki's previous life and working experience especially provides a lot of material for her to write later. With the dream of becoming a writer, Yuzuki lives as a writer. I mean, she lives and observes like with a camera and to process those frames with a unique medium connected with food, self-care, self-love, and also human relationships, particularly the female relationships. So I think the hidden metaphors and ambiguities, which are very common in Japanese art and culture, which is make it hard to capture for the Western audience. It is true that in the East Asian culture, the direct impact writing or written in the black and white style has no meaning at all. Yes. So the good writing is not just about reasoning, but it's all about engaging thinking. However, Yuzuki's work is more, the in-your-face like vibe, I have to say. So there is impact even with common contradictions and hidden metaphors. I thought that was why her book Butter, Butter, was translated into English first and is very popular among many readers in the English-speaking countries. I heard many good things about that book. But let's going back to the Atsuko's Lunch, this book. This book is about food and also about life at workplace, food and also human relationships, or let's say here, the mentorships between females. All those keywords point to another important topic of the story, which is nurturing. So let's put it this way. Food nurtures the body, and Atsuko nurtures the young Michiko. The heroines Atsuko and Michiko, they're so different, but also very fresh feeling characters. Each volume of this story is a collection of 4 uplifting stories, and which happened in only 7 days, and the changes of Michiko. So in the first part of the story, one day during her lunch break, after passing by and hearing Michiko's sign at the lunchbox, which is built with leftovers, Atsuko tells Michiko directly that there is nothing wrong with eating leftovers, but it is not good to eat them with a miserable attitude. If you have this attitude towards to food, you will have the same attitude towards to your life and even yourself. So soon then they start a week-long lunch exchange. Atsuko eats Michiko's lunchbox and Michiko goes to Atsuko's lunch spot. So in the story, Atsuko is a female in the management position, which is really not common in Japanese companies 10 years ago. So, remember this book is published in 2013. And she is the head of the department and also Michiko's boss. She is beautiful, strong, and also very empowered. The TV production did a really good job to restore her image, which is I love the most about it. And here our Michiko, she is quiet and shy, often finds it hard to express her feelings and emotions. Her job is very simple at the company, only does some general administrative work while she was working for Atsuko. So on the day 1 of their lunch exchange, Atsuko sent Michiko to this very hidden Indian-style curry restaurant. The food actually opened Michiko's stomach and also her eyes. Michiko's lunchbox that day was this high protein combo with all the oily Western style food because she tried to please Atsuko, so she made all those fancy food, karaage, hamburger, or something that very fancy. But because of this high cholesterol in the food, Atsuko has to order the Japanese style food for the next day. And actually, that's when Michiko starts thinking about how to eat healthy the first time ever, and even gets a book on healthy eating on the way home in the bookstore. And on the day 2, Atsuko sends Michiko to jog, to have a run during the lunch break and also all the way to run from their office to a smoothie food truck. But on the way there, Michiko meets her ex-boyfriend with another girl. So she does not make to the food truck. She runs back to the office without having any food, felt starved and also embarrassed. And even says the first time no to when she receives pressures from Atsuko. Atsuko was very happy about that, and she even said something. Atsuko says, "There's only 2 syllables for no. Iya. Iya. Why it is so hard for you to say it? But I'm glad that you just said no. I'm happy for you." So on the day 3, with the accomplishment of saying no, Michiko challenged herself again, run to the food truck, and gets her body ready for a healthy and delicious smoothie and chicken wrap that day. And she also learned a little bit more about Atsuko. So on the day 4, Michiko makes a lunchbox by following the healthy eating book. She was sent to the top of the roof by Atsuko of their office building and has okonomiyaki with a mystery like old man. She learns that from that old man there is not only one way to do things, and she needs to be more creative. Afterwards, she even works overtime for a project proposal and is able to say no to her jerk ex-boyfriend for the first time ever that night, loud and clear. Then, on the day 5, the last day, she hands in her creative project proposal and also sent by Atsuko to help at the curry restaurant she went on Monday during the lunchtime. Besides serving the curry, she also makes food when the curry was sold out. After learning to be creative, she ends up developing a new menu for the restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was so pleased with the food that she made. Michiko learns the creativity can be found everywhere in life and not just at work. So Atsuko does not say a lot to mentor Michiko. After seeing her potential, she pushes Michiko to learn through her actions. In one of the later episodes, Atsuko asks, "I know that you do want to change your life. So, do you want to have a life change then? Then start with changing the food you eat. Our body is made up of what we eat. Means we are what we eat. And the same applies to our life." So besides the food, the writer Asako Yuzuki works often focus on women. After reading many of her books, I found the female image in Yuzuki's writing is extremely diverse and all three-dimensional, which I cannot appreciate enough. If we only talk about the female image in Atsuko's lunch, Atsuko might still be uncommon in Japan, but very common elsewhere. At the Japanese book reading tracker website, Book Meter, Some readers comment that Atsuko's strength is still overwhelming to them. So my question is here, why it is still hard for people to accept a female with a strong personality in 2023? But on the topic of women in the management positions or empowerment, Yuzuki can be, also following the stereotype a little bit. For example, the Atsuko and other supervisor that Michiko has later in another department are all kind of like unpredictable and love to give young people a hard time, which I really disagree with. But in terms of the Japan's hierarchy social structures, it makes sense. It makes sense to them. But similar how the Atsuko mentors or nurtures the Michiko, as we mentioned, is like the food, like the primary nourishment for our body earlier in this podcast. Michiko asks why Atsuko is willing to mentor her, and Atsuko's answer is very interesting here, and she says, there is a proverb from the Middle East: whoever can make a good cup of tea can do anything well. So Atsuko sees Michiko's potential through the tea Michiko makes. So also Michiko reminds Atsuko of her own mother, who did not know how to cook, did not know how to take a good care of themselves. So Atsuko, as herself, is very happy to invest in Michiko. And another important factor is that Michiko herself was willing to be helped, to receive the help and the mentorship from Atsuko. I also personally learned a lot by reading this book and watching the TV show. For example, I remember to consider every task for job, even if it's just, let's say, room booking or ordering takeout. They all have their value of doing it. I have to take everything very seriously. Or with someone ask a question that is too personal at a workplace, the best way to avoid it is to redirect the question back to the person. I think that's also pliable in the personal, like private setting or situation. With all the foster and cultivation from Atsuko, Michiko later gains the trust of her bosses, passed the exam, gained the confidence, and becomes a permanent employee at their company. Then in the third book, she actually does a great job at a higher ranking department in their company. So this almost perfect mentor relationship got me thinking, how often could that happen in real life? So because, first of all, as far as we know that there are still few female employees in management positions, right? And second, how many of them are willing to level up the younger generation, but not see them as a threat or put them down? Bully and gender and age jealousy are expected in any workplace and any professional area. So, here's my experience or many people's experience that the best way for individuals to avoid and an unhealthy and toxic patterns is by working on themselves, by practicing, self-care and self-love, and also, have books like this one. This book, this TV show is a mentor. Atsuko is everybody's mentor, and to guide those who need advice on both professional and also personal development. So in the story, 15 years ago, Atsuko's mother passed away from cancer. And Atsuko's mother did not know how to cook and always had the frozen food, which causes her disease and then death. So that is how Atsuko realized that the food equals life. For Atsuko, thinking seriously about what to make and what to eat for lunch and having them that day is the first step of self-care. And also saying no is the first step in practice self-love. I believe my listener might already notice that the self-love and self-care are kind of different between the West and the East. In most of the TV shows and books we talked about in this podcast, that there is no easy solution. It sounds easy, but they're not easy. Or there is no extreme of doing or not doing anything to reach the goal to self-love and self-care. But looking at self-care tips online, we often it's probably very common to see the advice that seems almost everywhere. Eat well, exercise, sleep, go out, and of course drink more water. But here's one core thing that I found is missing. Without practice self-love, the self-care does not exist. Practice self-love is not being selfish, but it's learning about ourselves and creating the necessity for ourselves. Most of the time, only we create the space that we need for ourselves and seek the balance within our own body, the consequences like the self, things we have, self-judgment, like being harsh on ourselves. We have to find a balance within our body. Then we can help and give love to the outside world and other people. I learned this from Atsuko, because in the book she says this, that if you don't even know how to love yourself, you won't be able to receive or deliver it to anyone else. Yes, she is definitely a very strong, she has a very strong personality and a strength in this book, for sure. In 2015, when I first watched this TV show and then read the book in 2016, I was a student, living abroad, living alone in my mid-20s. I took on, I think, 5 part-time jobs that time, and then went to school full-time. And it was very bad and crazy. The idea of self-care and self-love did not register with me. So back then, all I thought about was surviving, and I did not get the core idea of the story that time. This year, to write for this podcast, I reread the book and felt like I understood the core message of the story for the first time ever. Everyone is so busy around us, so therefore, we have to take good care of ourselves. Self-care and self-love are a part of being an adult, and we all need to keep learning about it and learn how to do it in the real life. Suppose you, my listener, agree that life is 3-dimensional, and in that case, culture has multiple layers, and no notions takes anything for granted. In that case, Asako Yuzuki's work are for you, and you might enjoy a lot of Asuko's lunch as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and for tomorrow's lunch, maybe try to make something good or healthy, or go somewhere affordable and delicious. This episode is edited by Grace and written by me, Cordelia. I also translated all the dialogue that I mentioned in this episode from the Japanese. Talk to you soon in our next episode.